Thanks for joining us on our streaming service for this week's Drought Alert. I'm your First Alert meteorologist, Callie Zanandri. Taking a look at the latest drought monitor, conditions across Colorado are getting worse as warm, dry weather continues. The entire state is now under some level of drought. Severe and extreme drought are now expanding across eastern Colorado, while exceptional drought, the highest category, continues to blanket parts of northern and central mountains, including Jackson, Summit, and Eagle counties. Joining me now is Lisa Mason, a CSU Extension Specialist for Arapahoe County, to break down what the drought means for Colorado's insects. Lisa, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, let's jump right in. It's been hot, it's been dry. What does this mean for the insects?
Well, it depends. For a lot of insects that rely on plants, if plants are stressed out, that could be more food for some of those pest insects. For other insects, like our pollinators that rely on flowers and that pollen and nectar, things might be a little tough. So it really depends.
Now, we're also seeing a lot of stress on trees. How does that kind of stress impact activity in forests and even in our neighborhoods?
So stress on trees can make them more susceptible to insects. And so we know our forests are drought stressed, and we're seeing increased activity, especially like mountain pine beetle in the foothills and those ponderosa pine trees. For our urban trees, hopefully folks have winter watered this year to give those trees a little bit extra boost. But stressed out urban trees are susceptible to insects and diseases. And in the South Denver area, the freeze, that's an extra stress on those trees. A lot of those trees lost their new growth, so it's going to take some extra energy for them to leaf out this year.
Now, grasshoppers tend to love hot, dry weather. Are we expecting a bigger presence across Colorado this season?
We'll have to wait and see. Initially, surveys from last year indicated it may not be a super high grasshopper year. However, with the mild winter, I'm sure those grasshopper eggs are getting ready to hatch if they haven't hatched already. So we could see localized high populations. The other thing we might notice, even if the population isn't super high, with the drought, there's less weedy species for them to feed on, less weedy plants. And so that means they may focus on crops and irrigated landscapes as a food source. So that could increase grasshopper pressure.
Now, mosquitoes are already popping up in some spots. What should people expect as we head into the summer months?
Well, so mosquitoes, the mild temperatures are great for mosquitoes, but they also need water, standing water, to lay eggs and reproduce. So with less water, maybe that would be a good thing for mosquito populations, but we don't know for sure. Mosquitoes could still have a good year. So if people are already seeing mosquitoes, it's good for them to start protecting themselves now, wear bug repellent, long sleeve clothing, and remove standing water from the landscape.
All right, Japanese beetles, they have been a growing problem along the Front Range. How are conditions looking for them this year?
So again, boy, it's so hard to say, but what we do know is, over the winter, the grubs were deep into the soil. So the drought and the mild winter didn't affect them when they're that deep in the soil. As they work their way towards the surface with the warming soil temperatures, they're about a ½ inch long larva. They're big larvae, and they're getting ready to pupate. And so that'll be all normal. I don't know for sure if they'll be out early or anything, but what we might see happen is those new eggs. So the adults will emerge, and the females will lay new eggs, and those eggs and tiny larvae need consistently moist turf grass for them to survive. So that could be a little bit of a silver lining since we're under water restrictions and folks aren't watering their lawn as much. There might be less breeding areas for those eggs and larvae to hatch. In our urban spaces, there probably is going to be some green lawns. There'll probably be some breeding areas, but maybe perhaps less with the water restrictions.
And so that would impact then next summer.
Year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this summer we still might see them, but with the warm and dry conditions, I've been doing a lot more hiking than skiing this spring,
yes.
And I've noticed more ticks. What's that looking like this year?
So the mild weather is perfect for ticks right now. So they are, at least my observations, they are having a little bit earlier of a season. but ticks don't like hot weather, and they really prefer more humid conditions and some moisture to really thrive. So we're seeing them now. If we continue to have hot temperatures, hot and dry weather, those ticks might go dormant a little bit earlier, but we're probably going to have pretty good tick seasons on the, in the spring and again in the fall when we have more of those mild temperatures. So, so important to protect yourself from ticks.
All right, what about miller moths?
Oh, miller moths. This is such a popular topic every single year. It's hard to say. We don't know for sure what the season will be like and what the numbers will be like or if they'll be early. But what we do know is with the drought, there's a lot less food that's going to be along the way, along their migration route. And so one thing we may see is that they may stick around in our urban irrigated landscapes a little bit longer because that's where that's where the nectar is going to be and the blooming flowers are going to be less than, along their migration path. However, miller moths also don't like the heat. So we could see them take off early to get to those mountains so they can enjoy the cooler temperatures.
So overall, with the warm and dry conditions, what impact does that have on Colorado's insects?
Well, so it depends. So those pests, some of those pests, this is the perfect condition for them, except for those pests maybe that don't like the super hot temperatures. Insects like our pollinators, though, right now honeybees, they had a great winter because it wasn't very cold. They had a lot of warm days. So swarm season has certainly started early. So that can be good for beekeepers, but we're worried about flowers. There may not be enough flowers for honeybees, for wild bees, for other beneficial insects. So really those floral resources could be a challenge this year for insects.
And that leads me into, at home, what are some simple steps people can take to protect the healthy insect population during drought, especially for those pollinators? Yeah,
so planting flowers is one of the best things you can do, and a variety of flowers that last all season long from the very early spring to the late fall, because that provides food all season long. Having a water source, a bird bath, a shallow water dish that you change out regularly so you don't get those mosquitoes. But that can go a long way too, because all insects need water as well. And then leaving those habitat spaces. So leaf litter is great for insects, but that's also, if you have leaf litter like under your trees, that's a really good mulch that's going to keep moisture for your trees too. So leaving leaf litter, providing habitat spaces, and then really think about how you irrigate your landscapes this summer. We're all on water restrictions. We all want to be very cognizant of the drought. So think about where to prioritize the water you put in your landscape. Trees are definitely the most valuable thing, so keep those trees watered. Think about, drought tolerant plants. Those often benefit insects as well. Those kinds of things can go a long way.
Well, thanks. Great tips as always, Lisa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And we will see you back here next week for your Drought Alert.